You're listening to InfoVerity's Trust Us podcast, where you can gear up for your data management journey with bite-sized discussions on industry trends and thought leadership. On each episode, we'll feature industry experts to help you navigate your path to mastering your enterprise data. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Trust Us podcast. Today, we'll be talking about data governance. And as our guests today, we have Ben Collins and Harriet Sudduth. They're both leaders at InfoVerity in the data governance space. And we're going to talk to them about what data governance is, what data governance is not, what the value is of data governance, and how InfoVerity can help you get started on your data governance journey. So welcome, Ben. Welcome, Harriet. We're so excited that you're here. Would you mind introducing yourselves?
Happy to be here, Jocelyn. Sure. So I'm Ben Collins. As Jocelyn said, I'm a leader in our data management space with our data management experts. I come from a background in supply chain analytics and revenue forecasting and got into data governance because of my love of process and people and deriving value from data management and enterprise data management projects.
And my name is Harriet Sudduth. Thank you for the introduction, Jocelyn. I've been with InfoVerity for over 4 years now, primarily in the data governance and data quality space with InfoVerity, and have a particular kind of focus in the healthcare space so far. So happy to be here.
Well, great. Thank you both again for joining us today. Let's start with some basics. There are a lot of different ways that I think people could define data governance. Let's demystify it for our listeners. So tell me what data governance is, and then let's talk about what data governance is not.
Data governance is the overall management and processes that manage data so that data can be used in a way that adds value to the organization. Generally, we call this building trust in data. It's sort of the thread that combines disparate systems and different data methodologies and connects them to where people need data and need to use data well. So in the DAMA wheel, it's the center of the DAMA wheel because it connects all the things within it together, analytics and master data management and transactional data. And in the DAMA pyramid, it's the base of the pyramid because it's kind of the foundation for everything else that happens.
The only thing I would add to that is I think it places a lot of focus on the data ownership and stewardship of that data. So you touched, I think, a lot on the kind of processes side of that, but it also, involves and makes sure that we have the proper people around and kind of managing that data as well.
That's really helpful. Tell me what data governance isn't.
It is not lots of councils and lots of busy work, and it is not metadata management. So we'll get into this later on, I'm sure, but there are a lot of tools for data governance that push heavily data, like metadata management. So what types of data is it? What's the definition of the data? How frequently is it refreshed? That is metadata. It's data about data. It's very helpful, but it is not the only piece of the puzzle when it comes to data governance. It can be a really significant and a really helpful piece of it, but it's not all that's there.
Excellent, Ben. I think that's really great information. So one of these tools that we hear about from time to time are things like data catalogs or business glossaries. What kind of role do those different elements play within data governance?
So we talked about the process and the people that support the data and allow the organization to use their data effectively to provide value. And a lot of that happens through creating data trust. And so what data catalogs do is they tell you all the data that you have available. Most data catalogs have sort of an organization or a tagging capability, so you can provide a light level of organization to your full view of all of your enterprise data, your full data ecosystem. And what that can do, if it's applied properly, is it can help people understand what data they have, where it's coming from, and if they should trust it or not. Trust usually comes from data quality being included as part of the catalog. And then on the business glossary side, it's about providing context and sharing internal and siloed knowledge of that context more broadly across the organization, again, with the purpose of providing trust and helping people use the data more efficiently. Our best example of this is an analyst needs to generate a report for active customers. If they don't know what a customer is, there's not a clear definition of that, how can they pull that data? If there's not a clear definition of what an active customer is, how can they pull that data? So they need some business context that defines what an active customer is. Hey, this person's logged into our app in the last 180 days and made a purchase. They're an active customer. That's documented. Now I have consistency across my reports. And then they need to know where that data can come from. So they need a catalog to show them, oh, there's an active customer report that already exists, or this table has customer information and last action date, so they can calculate it themselves. So that's where we see the catalogs and the glossaries working together to provide data context to help solve a problem and provide a reporting level of value to an organization.
I think a key piece of kind of the underlying, ideas that Ben, you just touched on is the kind of governance turning into enablement for the rest of the company. So the data literacy of the people that are part of the organization that need to access that data. Everything you just talked about, I think one of the key benefits of that is just like you said, kind of providing that access or providing a centralized area or user interface that people and at different parts of the organization can go and find that information about that shared definition or about that metadata in the catalog. So the enablement piece is, I think, really the underlying maybe outcome of the data governance, right, of the implemented data governance for the rest of the organization.
Yeah, that's specifically around like the catalog and the business glossary. And then again, typically those are combined with some sort of data quality monitoring piece. And as Harriet said earlier, the ownership piece of it's really critical there too. So like she said, the availability, usability, and then if you can't find it, who do you go yell at or who do you go talk to, is a big part of that.
That's some excellent insight. Thank you both very much. So one of these more specific examples of some of the stuff that you just talked about is Unity Catalog, and that's something I'm aware of. But for those of us that are not, could you both walk through some of the functionality there and what elements of data governance that Unity Catalog can help support?
Yes, Unity Catalog is a really powerful tool with a really unfortunate name. It does not. There are a lot of catalog tools in the space, and Unity Catalog functions differently than all of them, and it causes a lot of confusion. So a typical governance catalog will look at all systems, all integrations, and catalog everything, and then it's really for organization and understanding data, data efficiency, and data duplication, and some light data organization and data finding. Unity Catalog, being a part of Databricks, is really for finding within Databricks, and it can reach out one level of integration out of Databricks to see source information, but it's Databricks Central, and it's more for very high level tagging and access management type use cases. So it's really, I can find this data and then I can request access to it, or I can know who has access to it. The contextual piece of a catalog where we can provide some business context to what's happening is pretty limited. The data tags are not long form, where we have some initiatives to build that within Databricks so that we can do a little bit more of business context within Unity Catalog, but it is predominantly, we would call it a technical catalog. So it's predominantly for finding and accessing data, specifically on the reporting use case and specifically for technical type roles that are going to be heavily involved in Databricks. It fits a different role than a more business focused governance catalog would. Now, they work really well together. It's just very confusing for organizations to spend money on two catalogs. If I have a catalog, why do I need another catalog? But they work really well together because most catalogs, governance tool catalogs, can consume Unity catalog and then share that information more broadly and include that for people to find across systems, which is quite helpful. But it does get a little confusing with the terminology.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And I think if we encounter people every day that struggle with the difference that you're describing, then I'm sure that that's also useful context for listeners. Speaking of defining things, can we talk a little bit about another kind of common buzzword in the data governance space, which is lean data management? So talk to me about what that is and what would you describe the value of that to be?
Lean data management is not a buzzword yet. It's something that I invented. Um, it is it's something I've been working on and writing for a little while. Uh, it's based on this theory that when we look at how we take raw information and then we process it and transform it and we put these controls and this quality on it and add context to it, and then we churn out these reports that are informational and have meaningful information in them. The process of doing that is very similar to an additive manufacturing process. So we're taking essentially a raw material and we're turning it into a finished good. We're even starting to use the same terminology. We have raw data and then we have data products, which is kind of how we talked about it back in the manufacturing or when I was working as a manufacturing analyst and doing Lean Six Sigma type improvement projects. So lean data management is getting away from the focus on data governance tools and trying to focus on providing value with data. A lot of organizations work against their data to provide value, and it's really inefficient and it's not supporting their business initiatives to accomplish what they need. A lot of organizations can't track the key metric that they need to track to measure their business effectively, or they can't track it at a high enough frequency level to do that. And so what lean data management does is it just applies pretty time tested and universal framework of process improvement and specifically at value add to customer process improvement of lean manufacturing to data. So we look at current state, we map to future state, and we identify our waste. So overuse, overhandling, wasted talent. There are 9 official lean wastes. We'll look at them, and then we apply that to make sure that the data is providing value to the organization. And I think the thing that makes me the most excited about it as a methodology is not only does it give you a framework to improve your processes, but the way it's designed is to be measurable. So everything has a baseline that is quantified. So we can measure ROI and we can measure time to value based on the initiatives that we want to do. So, if we're looking at investing in MDM, absolutely, you should probably do that. It's a really critical piece of technology right now. But if you can't quantify the current state processes and measure them, and then have a target for your future state processes with MDM and have a target for that so that you can calculate your return on investment or the time it will take for you to see value on your MDM tool, then it's really difficult to get funding. And it's really difficult to prove that you had a successful project afterward. It's hard to go back and life's awesome. You can do all these crazy things that you couldn't do before with MDM. You have your 360 view of customer where you have your product, universally mastered across your full organization. You're like, this is awesome. I'm glad we invested in this. It's really hard to then go back and say, yeah, and it saved us X amount of dollars. It's really hard to go back and justify it after the fact if you haven't done the current state type documentation with the future state as well. So that's the framework. It's a part of data governance because it's focused on the people and the process management and driving trust and value with data to the data consumers, internal or external.
And that is a super interesting concept and one that resonates with me in particular as somebody with a manufacturing and operations process background as well. And
Yeah.
Jocelyn,
Jocelyn
you
too. Yeah.
also have that background, so this is something that's landing quite nicely with both of us. So Ben and Harriet, we've heard a lot about the different elements of data governance. What is data governance? What isn't data governance? Some of the elements that play into, how you can better manage your data governance at an enterprise level. But there's clearly a lot going on here. There's a lot of different places to dip into the data governance space. So Ben and Harriet, how can InfoVerity help you get started on your data governance journey?
There's a lot. There's a lot of ways. And we talked about kind of the importance of having a knowing what the value you need to get out of the data is, and then applying that backwards to a tool. We can help organizations find that. We actually do Kaizen style events, which is another lean methodology type process, which is a week long intensive where we look at exactly that. So we map some processes and we look at where we can find value there and then figure out what the next steps are. So we do everything from small week-long engagements like that all the way up through longer term, year or more term full implementations of people and process frameworks in an organization. So identifying owners and their roles and responsibilities and what data is critical for each process, or which data do they need to be auditing in process and making sure that the quality is there, to quality implementations, to data governance tool implementations, like data catalogs and business glossaries to help provide that business context and that trust upward. So starting from the week long, just figuring out your value all the way through the full long-term implementations. And then in between, we do a lot of enablement around governance tools. So this is a shorter 6 to 10 weeks. Come in and we kind of teach you how to use the tool and how to populate the tool effectively so you can get value out of it. And most of these tools are pretty simple. Once you've gotten into them and gotten through them once or twice, you can understand how to use them and how to expand them on your own. And then our recommendation is actually, as part of that, we usually do a light framework. And so then our recommendation is to expand along the lines of that framework, the rest of the tool out, so that can be done within an organization. It's more efficient to do it that way than for us to build the whole thing. Harriet, any other specific offerings I'm missing in that space?
No, I think you covered those really well. I mean, I think obviously it looks a little bit different for each client, but that, ultimately we ask a lot of the same questions and maybe get different, answers to better help each of the clients. But, I think you covered that well.
So if I had to summarize our discussion here today, I'd put it like this. In general, data governance is the unique combination of tools and processes that an organization would use to build trust in their data with a strong focus on data ownership and data stewardship. It is not councils and busy work and metadata management. There are a few different building blocks that our listeners could explore as they progress on their data management journey, specifically in the data governance space. One would be data catalogs, where your data is defined and inventoried. That's going to provide trust and allow you to use your data more efficiently. Building on that, you could explore the concept of Unity Catalog and really refine the access to that across the organization, which the data catalog is going to expose to the organization and drive the value that you intend to establish from that. Another concept that could be a building block for our listeners is lean data management, which is going to help you understand and manage KPIs for your organization. So if I'm putting this succinctly, we've got all of the different tools and processes that could go into what you choose to establish data governance within your organization. There are different nuances to how you can put those building blocks together, but really it's about building trust in your data exposing that to the organization, and then also making sure that you continue to measure it across time based on what's important to you so that you sustain those gains. And really, that's what InfoVerity can help our listeners do, which is get the most out of the data that they have at their fingertips, get that value from it by implementing these tools, by implementing these processes, not only in the near term, but also, again, in the long term to sustain that value. And that can be any size of implementation or just strategy work that a customer is ready to embark upon based on where they are in their journey. Do you think that that's a pretty fair assessment of our discussion today?
I think that was really well wrapped. And I think the only thing I would add is that data governance can sound very additive to what's happening, but in truth, organizations have to be doing governance to survive at some level. There's somebody you call when the customer address is wrong to go fix it because the invoice went out the wrong way. That's your data steward. You've already established who that person is. There's already a process for them to fix it. You're already doing governance at some level in an organization, and we're not trying to add more steps to that. A lot of times what we're trying to do is quantify and then expose those steps so that they can be monitored, managed, improved, to make the organization more efficient. Forgot to talk about that earlier, and I heard that in your summary, Jocelyn. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, you took the question that I was going to ask right out of my mouth, which was, did we miss anything? So that was certainly one thing. Anything else that we didn't discuss that you'd like to mention, Ben and Harriet?
No, I think we were all on the same page. That was the thing I was going to bring up too. So I think that was a good summary, and we covered a lot of good content today.
Certainly agree. Appreciate both of your insights. Thank you so much for the time. And I'm sure that there's more that we'll discuss for our listeners relative to data governance in the coming episodes.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
For more than a decade, InfoVerity has been established as an industry-leading consultancy specializing in solving enterprise data management business problems with best-in-class technical solutions. Our firm has consultants located around the globe with headquarters in Columbus, Ohio and Valencia, Spain. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you, please visit our website at infoverity.com. We've also included additional contact information in the show notes.